Okay, so this says it wants you to do a card match activity. Right now we're not going to do a card match activity because we already did that in class. So we did that on Desmos, and we went and we matched our cards all together. So what I want you to do is I actually want you to come up with your own examples. For those of you that that's too difficult for, that's why you're watching this video with me. So commutative property of addition is where we have something where they add together and they switch, they commute. Okay? So that would be something like 7 plus 6 equals 6 plus 7. And now you're going to write your own example right there. Okay? So I've now done the first two for you. You do the last example. Okay? The reason why this is commutative of addition is because you can see that B switched places. The A switched places. And so that switching is called commuting. And then the reason why it's of addition is because it's got the addition signs. Okay? So now we've got the commutative property of multiplication. So this would look something like A times B equals B times A. So I'm looking for that switch in the A and B again. And my example is going to be 18 times 2 is equal to 2 times 18. Okay. So again, you come up with your own example and place it there. Associative property of addition. So associative is where I was talking about people being our friends, our associatives. Okay, so I talked about how like sometimes we put our arms around this friend, and a friend is left out over there. And sometimes we change our minds and we turn and we put our arms around this friend and then the friend that was way out there and leave a different friend out. Okay, so depending on the day, we might leave out different friends. Okay. So this is A plus B plus C equals, I'm going to scroll in, A plus B plus C is equal to A plus B plus C, where this changes the order in which we like favor people. So my example of this is going to be 2 plus 3 plus 4 is equal to 2 plus 3 plus 4. And you'll notice that I wrote kind of opposite than I did the first time. It's okay if the parentheses start here or if they start here. It does not matter where the parentheses start as long as they move. Okay. So now I'm looking at associative property of multiplication. So I'm looking at A times B times C is equal to A times B times C. And you'll notice that I changed the order of those parentheses. You'll also notice that right here, I have a multiplication sign, and right here I do not. It's okay for it to not have a multiplication sign. Okay? So that's something else that you got to get used to seeing. So my example of this is going to be 2 times 4 times 8 is equal to 2 times 4 times 8. And it doesn't matter if I do it in this order or if I do it in that order, it's still the same. Okay? All that's changed is that those parentheses have moved. Okay? You are now going to go and do these two examples for me. The identity property of addition. So identity, this is where you're looking for yourself. So I have X And I want it to equal x in the end with an addition because it asks for addition. So x plus no 1 still makes x. 2 plus nothing still makes 2. You give me an example. Okay. So I have identity property again. It means that I'm starting with something and I'm looking for it in the end. This time it's of multiplication, so I'm looking for that number that multiplies by it. That makes 1. X times 1 still makes itself. Okay, so my big hinty hint to you guys is that I'm always looking for a plus 0 or a times 1 when I'm looking for those identities. Okay, so here I get like 2 times 1 equals 2. You now give me your own examples for those two. An inverse property is going backwards. It's doing something different. It's doing the opposite. So now I start with x, but I'm trying to get 0 out of it. The reason why I'm looking for 0 is because up here when I told you about 0 and I highlighted it, okay, so I'm looking for what can I do to go backwards. And so I'm looking for addition, and I'm looking for x plus what makes 0. And this one's really hard for a lot of people to comprehend. So I'm going to try this. 2 plus what equals 0. At this point, a lot of you start thinking like, oh, I can put a negative sign in there. Or you start thinking like, man, I wish that it had been a minus, not a positive. Okay? So it's still a plus, but I can put that negative 2 there, which means that I could also put a negative x right there. It is the opposite of what you started with. See how that negative 2 is the opposite of what you started with. You'll go ahead and you'll put an answer there. Okay? You show me an example. So if I start with x and I need to get to 1, the reason why I know I'm looking for 1 is because I highlighted that 1 over here in that identity property. Okay, so I'm looking for that 1 again over here. So I start with x, and I'm looking for multiplication because it asks for multiplication. And I'm looking for something that's pretty much the opposite of x. And the way we do that with multiplication is with a fraction called 1 over x. So 2, 1 over 2 doesn't equal 0. It equals 1. Okay? So that's one of the biggest mistakes that I get on the test, is that people will forget which one is 1 and which one's 0. Okay? You need to add no 1 in order for it to be your identity. You need to have one of you in order for it to be your identity. You give me an example here. Okay? Distributive property. So, distributive property is rainbow math is our favorite way to describe it. B plus C. So I get A, B plus A, C because I rainbowed in. Okay, I did the A times B makes AB. I did the A times C makes AC. That rainbow math. So here's your number example, and I'm going to do this really close up because I want to make sure that you have all the steps, although there are some you can skip. So if I do 2, 4 plus C equals, I rainbow. This makes 2 times 4 plus 2 times C. This step, some people skip, and they go straight to 8 plus 2C. So you might see some people skip right here that step. And they just say 2 times 4 in their head, and they go, oh, it's 8. Okay? You're going to go ahead and give me an example of rainbow math right there. And that's the end of your homework. It shouldn't take you more than 15 minutes, okay? Bye.